again, I got to put Ghost in that same bucket as Lamb of God and whoever else that I'm not that super familiar with them. I've heard enough of their material to know that I know what they sound like, I know what he sings like. And I was a little surprised that he was pitchy. Like he was and listen, God, we all know as singers, we all know we have bad days. But
Wait, you're surprised that the singer for Ghost sucks? Come on, man.
I didn't say he sucks. I did not say that he sucks.
Are you ready to bark?
Hey, Metal Fiends, we are back for installment number 2. This is Dave DeMarco and Greg Meadows, and we're doing a recap. That's what we're going to call this. This is a recap of the Back to the Beginning Ozzy Black Sabbath farewell show. If you missed installment number 1, we basically took it from the beginning of the show all the way through, I think, to about Gojira, and we stopped there. So now we're going to pick up with supergroups. There were two epic supergroups that were put together by Tom Morello, and absolutely star-studded cast of characters performing their favorite Ozzy and Sabbath adjacent material in some cases. Let's jump right in. Greg, what did you think about the first thing that we saw out of Supergroup A?
We said on part 1 we were clearly in second gear for this event. It was streaming in real time, and a lot of it was hard to process. Like, you and I didn't know what was coming next. We were texting each other, and it was exciting to watch, and it was historic. You're a true metal fan. This was, forget Live Aid, this is like parting in the Red Sea, or like Moses coming down with 15 commandments. See the Mel Brooks movie where he dropped one?
Oh, yeah.
I have these 15.
10 commandments.
All right, so let's get into part 2, which was a whole different series of performances. It was a little, given what it was, Dave, and you and I both saw the same things happening at the same time.
Yeah.
And there were so many times that a moment in a song could go completely off the rails. I think I texted you that this song is going off the rails like a crazy train. Do you remember when I texted you? So we had 2 supergroups. As you can see, one did Sweet Leaf, It Changes, and Mr. Crowley. Those were some big hits. And then the other one had Snowblind, which I was waiting to see which band was going to do Snowblind. That's a classic Sabbath song that I'm sure every band wanted to do. And then there was this sort of drum battle, they called it, which was interesting. It felt like a wedding to me, the whole thing. That was my take. How did you feel when it was over? I know you had some highlights and lowlights, right?
Yeah, I like this kind of stuff. I love seeing couplings of musicians that you're just never going to see. And not to say that they don't happen somewhere at someone's wedding, someone's bar mitzvah, but we don't get to see that kind of thing. So to see this all put together and to know that it was put together in a somewhat limited time frame and that Tom Morello had to build this from scratch, who's going to play with what? The first thing that we have to say is let's give credit where credit is due, because MVP Nuno gets that hands down. The guy had to learn an absolute ton of material, and I'm going to guess that some of those Randy solos were not new to him, that he probably learned them way back when, and he was, at best, he was revisiting some things that he had already played, but I'm sure there were some things that were new to him, but you couldn't tell the difference. That's what's amazing about Nuno. You couldn't tell the difference between what he had just learned and what he's been playing for his entire life. You don't expect anything less from Nuno. He was damn near flawless, and second prize on the MVP trophy goes to Rudy Sarzo, because Rudy, what a great utility bass player to be able to show up and nail all that stuff. And granted, he was in Ozzy's band for a long time. He knows a good bit of that material for sure, He's got Ozzy's DNA all over it. But all the other players that came in too, they all brought something really unique. And yeah, I had my high points for sure. Watching Believer for me, that's a song that as soon as I heard, and that was with Frank Bello on bass, not with Rudy. But as soon as I heard that line, and you just go, "Oh my God, I forgot." Not that you don't forget about the song, but I wasn't expecting to hear that day, and to hear that, and I remember I stopped everything I was doing, and I'm going to say this: when I go to concerts, I'm not the person who's going to stand. I stand out of necessity because everybody else is standing, but I'm not that person who feels like the concert sounds better if I'm standing, so I'm going to stand and make everybody else behind me stand. I'm not that guy. But when Believer came on, I stood up in my living room. I had to. I absolutely had to. It was fantastic. And if you ever want to see, what being in the moment looks like, go back and watch that and look at Scott Ian's face while he's playing, especially when it gets to the real heavy part, the
Randy
heavy middle part in Believer.
Yeah.
And you're watching Scott and you look at his face, and for everything that he's accomplished, everything that he's done in his life, every high point that he's had, you're looking at him and he's going, "This is the coolest thing I've ever done. This is the coolest thing." You could just see it written on his face. It was the heaviest, and this is a guy who makes heavy riffs for a living, okay? If anyone deserves to be somewhat jaded, it would be him. And you could, again, I just watched him and I said, I know that look, I know that feeling when you're playing something that you're so emotionally connected to that it's like at that moment, nothing else matters. All that matters is that riff, that feeling, the sound of your guitar coming out of your amp. We've all had that moment on stage with a special song that means something to us. And I can't even, I thought to myself, all right, Dave, you're bellow up there, okay? You're holding this down. I would have had to have turned my head around so that you couldn't see me. I would have been crying like a baby, guarantee it. But you can't, how can you cry when you're playing something that brutal? But I probably would have been so overcome by emotion. That song means, I love that song, Believer.
Me too.
And hearing them tear into that. So then let's talk about Whitfield Crane. So here's a guy who, I don't know about for you, but when they introduced him, I heard the name and oh yeah, Ugly Kid Joe. I remember that guy.
Good for you, because he didn't say who he was. He just went up and said, "Hey, everybody, we're going to do Believer." And I'm like, who's this guy? He didn't say, "I'm Ugly Kid Joe." Did he say?
No, he didn't. But someone introduced him and said, "We're going to bring out it might have been Momoa. I don't remember who it was, but somebody announced and said, and here's Whitfield Crane." And I was like, oh, wow, man. And again, all I know is the last thing I heard from Ugly Kid Joe was sometime in the 90s. The guy might have a career, he might have been in 5 bands since then.
Right.
I'm not saying that he disappeared, but he wasn't on my radar screen. So when he came out, I was like, wow, forgot about this guy. All right, let's see what he does.
I read online, and I'm not able to stitch the story together, but what he had to go through to get on that stage for that song was like a whole thing that needs to be retold. Hopefully he'll tell it. Yeah.
So all I know is the guy came out and he sang that song as if he wrote it. If for any of the previous bands that we talked about where we said the singer was reading the lyrics here or didn't feel connected, didn't have the melody down, Whitfield Crane walks out there. He owns the stage, dressed in exactly what he used to wear in Ugly Kid Joe, t-shirt, shorts, and a pair of Nikes or whatever. And he's just out there prowling the stage, but he's singing that song. He didn't need any lyrics. He knew that song.
Oh, yeah.
He nailed that song.
He did.
And I was beyond impressed with his performance on that. And I wanted to hear him do more. I think that was the only song that he did.
Me too. That song, like you, that song's Randy, man. That song's special to me. Like that one and Diary of a Madman or in Randy. But especially Believer, it has that epic Randy riff from hell, the B flat to F sharp. Nobody did that like Randy Rhoads. And so thankfully we had Nuno, right? Would have been cool to have Rudy there, but I enjoyed, to what you were saying earlier, I enjoyed Frank Bello during this live stream. That guy he's so relaxed on stage. He's such a good player, and he had the Sabbath bass, like especially made for this supergroup segment. He might have had it with Anthrax, but
That's a new bass for him. That's a relatively new bass for him. He's just joined the Spectre team not long ago, and so that is his signature series bass.
with the Sabbath logo on it.
No, that was something that was done for this. A couple other people had that Sabbath logo on their guitars. So for all I know, Sharon had a bunch of decals printed out, and they all put them on their guitars, or who knows?
Wait, is his signature bass purple though?
Yes, it is.
Oh, cool. I thought it was just for Sabbath. Anyway, it was...
No, that has something to do with his sister. I think it was his sister's favorite color or something. But
anyway, yeah, he was good. We can't gush enough about Nuno Betancourt.
Yeah,
utility guy.
Speaking of bass players, though, I want to talk about Rudy for a second. I'd sent you that picture. So speaking of bass players and their gear, I want to talk about Rudy Sarzo because he was there's a great picture that Rudy had posted on his Facebook page. But before he posted that, he sent it to a friend of mine, and a guy named Kevin Brubaker, who makes amazing A-level bass guitars. And Rudy is Brubaker's latest endorsee. And he's playing his signature series Brubaker bass during this whole show. So Kevin Brubaker, I had sent him an email saying congratulations on getting Rudy and all that. And he said, check out this picture that Rudy just sent me. And he sent this picture that you see here with him and Steven Tyler on stage. And he said something to the effect of, Rudy has been on the bill with Steven Tyler a bunch of times before, but they've never actually shared the stage together. So this was a very special moment for him. But for me, I'm watching this, and I know Brubaker basses. So many of my students own them and play them, and they're great instruments. And a couple of times during the show, Kevin always signs the back of his basses. And I could see Kevin's signature on watching the live stream of this show. I could see Kevin's signature on the back of the bass, and I just thought that's really cool. Baltimore made and on the stage here at Villa Park in Birmingham. I just thought that was cool.
So cool. Let's get back to the event. So we talked about Believer. I'm with you on that song. And a word about Rudy. I have this theme about this event where there's these little moments you might notice, some might not. It wasn't Believer, but one of these songs was very close to going down the tube. And Rudy saved it. Despite Tom Morello waving that here's the end of the song
Right.
about to end now, 2 more measures and the song's about to end. Hey, just reminding you guys that the song's about to end, right? Like, he was just very trying to bring the plane to the ground, and it was still going to go off the rails, right? And Rudy was the guy who just didn't need to look like he was on an airport tarmac guiding in a 747. They just looked at him, and he would just give him like a little nod. Yep, this is the last measure. Yep, you're good. Let's go. It was great. And it's stuff like that combined with Nuno that this whole supergroup thing came off overall pretty good.
It really did. We all have our favorite players, and it would be very easy to look at that and go, oh, I wish this person had stayed on a little longer. But the great variety of people, and again, just from a bass player perspective, we got to see Dave Ellefson, we got to see frankbello, we got to see Rudy,
Mike
and Mike Borden, and all the different drummers, and we have to talk about Jake, seeing Jake E. Lee back out, which was fantastic. And I'd mentioned before that Charvel that he was playing, that Burgundy Charvel, that was made for him for this show, which that's really cool.
Me being a huge Jake E. Lee fan, I think Ultimate Sin is the 3rd best Ozzy solo record. I think it's, if you exclude the 2 records with Randy Rhoads, I think it's number 1. I still believe that after all these years. I just listened to that record front to back recently. It just cooks. Jake is playing is on fire. It's the Bark at the Moon I think there was a lot of grieving going on with Randy. I don't think they were in the right headspace in the studio. You could hear that on the record. Bark at the Moon is great, but the production wasn't there, and it felt rushed. But Ultimate Sin was Jake's coming out party, and so he was gone. Like, he's been gone for decades. And so for him to come out on that stage, I was closer to tears with Jake walking out on the stage than Ozzy, right, to be honest with you, because I knew Ozzy was in poor health, so it wasn't a surprise, right? But when Jake, and then I don't know if you remember, but he didn't come out at first. Like they said on the mic, "Where's Jake? We can't start the song without him."
Oh
Right?
man, my heart fell. I thought, oh no, something happened.
Where is he? Did he trip, fall? Is he arguing with Sharon? I didn't know, and it was very uncomfortable. Lizzie Hale didn't know what to do. Nuno didn't know what to do because the band was ready. And then again, these are the little things. And then maybe on the replays, they cut all this stuff out. But Jake came out at just the right moment. He just appeared from the side of the stage. And Nuno grabbed the mic and he said, "Now that's how a rock star comes on stage." Because Jake was fiddling with his guitar. And once he heard that guitar pop through the amp, Nuno was saying, "Go." And so Nuno was a hero. And I felt when Jake was shot last year, and he has arthritis now he's dealing with. So as guitar players, I know there's probably lots of them who agree with me. He was for Jake to play at all on any song, but I would have liked to be played on Bark the Move. I didn't think legally that would ever happen. I knew they probably had an agreement. You can come, you can participate, but you are not playing Bark the Moon, which is his song.
Yeah.
Fine. I'm sure Jakey, they will get on some of his podcasts and talk about the whole thing. Or maybe he's under gag order. Who knows? But he did The Ultimate Sin.
Right.
And he did Shot in the Dark without Nuno left for that song. And you and I were texting about this. Shot in the Dark lost something without the other guitar. But overall, it was great. I loved it.
It was. And for Ultimate Sin, I was little, I think we had mentioned this, that the camera was on Nuno for the solo in Ultimate Sin.
Yeah.
So I wasn't aware that Jake was even soloing. So I was a little put off going, gee whiz, why aren't they letting Jake solo on this? But then it turns out they were soloing in unison. So that's fine.
Cool.
And then
which they probably agreed to do, right? I'm sure they
probably,
did.
I'm sure. Yeah. They would have had to have.
Okay, before I get off this list, we were both very pleased with Yungblud. I didn't know who he was.
Yeah.
Ozzy loves him. The clips from backstage, Ozzy just couldn't get enough of this kid. He just adores him. So for him to do changes, and this harkens back to 1985 for Live Aid, when the band finished Changes, he walked out on the catwalk and got the crowd to do another chorus or two a cappella. And it was really kind of Freddie Mercury type of thing. It was cool.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I'd never heard of him, but he did a great job.
Yeah, man, for a kid.
Yeah.
And then I know you went nuts over the Jack Black, Mr. Crowley with Tom Morello's son and Scotty.
Oh my God.
I did too. It was an exact replica of the original video down to Ozzy's costume and the drums and the gong and the moog, and it was fantastic.
Everything. And the bass that was being played was Rudy's bass that he played.
Man.
I originally thought it was a different bass, but no, it was the exact Music Man bass that Rudy played in that video.
And the white guitar cab, Randy's white cabs.
The attention to detail that was put into that, and either you said or I read something that Jack Black was the guy who really put that all together, and that he must have said either we're doing this and it's going to be exact, or we're not doing this, right. And they got it exact. Picking up Tom Morello's son like he did, that was a work of art to me. That was absolutely a work of art, and you could see that it was a labor of love.
Yeah, and the two kids came out and introduced the video that they were in. And I think the name of the band was Mr. Crowley, right? That was the name of the band.
Yeah.
I think you texted me that this is the greatest thing I've seen so far in this show. It's hard to disagree. So we have the Supergroup A. They did a great job. The guy from Disturbed sang Shot in the Dark and Sweet Leaf. He did a fine job. I felt I'd had enough at that point, but they had more, and I was surprised. So let's talk about the second supergroup, which was, I'm not sure the order, but out walks Billy Corgan in like a full length kind of priest robe thing
Yeah, that was yeah.
with Hickey Downing of all people from Judas Priest. I'm a massive Priest fan, probably second only to Sabbath in this genre. I know everything they've ever done. I listen to them constantly. And there's KK, right? And he's got his KK stuff on. He's got the Flying V, and they do Breaking the Law, and then they do Snowblind. What were your thoughts on these two?
Snowblind was fantastic. Bill is an interesting choice of singer. He was someone that I was very surprised to see him there. So there's obviously some connection there that I don't know about.
He's got a really popular podcast now, so he's interviewing everybody. So maybe
Yeah, I guess that has something to do with it.
the guitar players on stage for the Billy Corgan, along with KK, were Tom Morello and Adam Jones, who go back to high school together, played in the band in high school,
Electric Sheep.
Electric Sheep. So I think Tom Morello said that's the first time he's been on stage with Adam Jones since high school. And we're not used to seeing Adam Jones in anything other than Tool. He doesn't do side projects. Tool is his band. And I read online that Tool as a band decided they weren't going to do the Ozzy and Sabbath Tribute Fest in Via Park. And they told Sharon no. And then they individually found out that they were all pretty much going for one of these supergroup things, right? So Maynard was going to go for something. Danny Carey was already signed up to do the drum stuff. And Adam Jones was going to come and do this. And so Adam Jones posted, shit, if we're all going to be there,
Right.
why can't we play as Tool? So that's what they did.
Wow.
Yeah.
That worked out well.
Which made me think, why are you guys not in text thread together? I don't understand. Like, how did you find out your bandmates are going to England to play the largest historic? Like, how are you not in a group thread? I don't understand this stuff.
Apparently, Phil Anselmo, which we haven't talked about Pantera, Phil Anselmo just got a cell phone when Pantera, the new Pantera, got together. He's
Right.
made it all this time. The only reason he got the cell phone is because Zach only communicates via text. So he was forced to get a cell phone in order to communicate with Zach.
I see where Phil lives. He posts videos online all the time. And he's a Louisiana guy. He lives in a swamp in a one room, one kitchen shack. It looks to me like a shack. He's got a pig in the front yard that's always sitting on the ground around him and a couple of dogs. And he posts videos like, I'm like, wow, like he's way in the swamps. Like he's in the, whatever you call it, the bayou.
Yeah.
Bill's a bayou dude. Yeah. Doesn't even look like he has electricity, to be honest with you, in some of the videos. It's crazy. It looks like something out of Deliverance, right where he lives. Yeah, and he's like a global rock superstar. So strange.
Oh my God.
So Sammy Hagar came out, Dave, and
Yeah.
it Flying High Again and Rock Candy. What'd you think?
That was great. Jeez, Sammy's mid 70s or something. I know he was a little loose on Flying High Again, but man, it just reminded me of like when Sammy was in Van Halen and they would do Won't Get Fooled Again or something, and it was a little loose and it was a little, geez, even when Roger Daltrey does Won't Get Fooled Again, there's parts that he's loose and he interprets it. So I didn't have any issue. I didn't take any umbrage with Sammy messing up a line here or there, or whatever, because he covered for it so well. And then when he did Montrose, of course, he was more comfortable with that. That's his thing. He still got the goods. He really does. I thought he was a great addition.
I love Sammy. I think he's in an odd way becoming Jimmy Buffett.
Yeah.
To me, but that's fine. He's on his last ride, so he's loving life. He did float some words on Flying High Again, which I didn't really care, but I'm sure David Lee Roth somewhere did. Sammy's always giving him shit for forgetting lyrics, so David Lee Roth, wait a second, man. But anyway, yeah, it was like you were saying about part one, it was that there were these fresh breaths of air. I think that's what you said, right? Like
Yeah.
things happen where you're used to one vibe, and then somebody else comes out. Speaking of which, Dave, Bark at the Moon was great. It was a song that a lot of people were expecting, but nobody knew who was going to play it. I never for a second expected that Jake would play it, and he didn't.
Yeah.
However, you had Vernon Reid from Living Color come out and join Nuno for Bark at the Moon. Again, this was some odd shit going on with these supergroups. So you it was live streaming. You sit back and you're like, you lean forward and you're like, what's going on? Is this song going to be a train wreck? Is someone going to mess up? That's how I felt when I was watching these wedding bands getting thrown together. But this came off great. The singer from Ghost, I rolled my eyes. I'm like, oh, okay, here's the Ghost guy. I think he expected the crowd to scream and give him some kind of ovation. Or did you pick up on that? He said, hey, how you doing, everybody? And there was just nothing. And then he was like, are you guys ready to bark? And again, nothing at all from this stadium full of metalheads. They were not having it. And I love that, Dave. They were not having it. You're either in the club or you're not. And if you're there to endear yourself to these people who don't like you, don't even try, man. That's my take on it. But go ahead, what did you think?
Again, I got to put Ghost in that same bucket as Lamb of God and whoever else that I'm not that super familiar with them. I've heard enough of their material to know that I know what they sound like. I know what he sings like. And I was a little surprised that he was pitchy. Like he was and listen, God, we all know as singers, we all know we have bad days. But
wait, you're surprised that the singer for Ghost sucks? Come on, man.
I didn't say he sucks. I did not say that he sucks. I'm not saying that he sucked at all. I'm just saying that he did appear to be struggling with the melody on that. And okay, listen, we all have bad days as singers sometimes. But I know enough of his material, or I've heard enough of it to know that what he sings like, and he is capable. It's not like Randy Blythe trying to sing melodically on Children of the Grave. Tobias can sing melodically. It just wasn't working for him that day.
Band, right? They're huge.
They really are a big band. I have friends who go gaga for them, and I read these posts and I see people just absolutely going mental for them. I know they just did a couple nights at Madison Square Garden, so
That's great.
They're doing well. Which as to why the Birmingham crowd did not embrace him, I have no idea. I can't speak to that.
It's Birmingham, man. It's a Sabbath.
Yeah.
Ground zero. Enough about Ghost. I'm sure there are whole podcasts dedicated to Ghost. So, I don't know if you were on a bathroom break, in the kitchen, or whatever. I was coming in and out as the stream was going on, and the Ghost led Bark at the Moon was going off stage, and then I heard over the PA, I need a mic, because I don't have a mic.
Yeah.
Somebody needs to get me a mic, right? Over the live stream, which was heard in the stadium. And I'm like, okay,
He's got a mic.
Someone's got a hot mic. And it was Steven Tyler. Right? So he was just talking. And he was already mic'd up and ready to go. And he came out. They did Train Kept a Roll, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah.
That was my little Jeff Beck moment. He brought out Ronnie Wood from
Ronnie Wood, yeah.
Stones. I don't know who the drummer was. But anyway, Steven Tyler, his voice sounded incredible. And then they did some Zeppelin.
Chad Smith.
Of course, Chad Smith, right. Who fudged up a Bonham. He fudged up the Bonham fill from Whole Lot of Love after an hour earlier rolling his eyes and making fun of the drummer from Blink-182.
Travis, yeah. Travis Barker, yeah.
That was the little moment that I caught during the drum. We haven't talked about the drum battle yet, but yeah. So Steven Tyler, his voice sounded incredible. What did you think?
Oh, I loved it. He absolutely sounded great. I don't know what a cabal of witch doctors they had to summons together to get Tyler to be able to turn in that performance, considering the vocal problems that he's had.
They thought Aerosmith shut down because of his voice.
They did. They had to cancel their farewell tour because Steven couldn't sing. Now, that's been the better part of a year ago. I guess getting him up to speed to be able, his voice up to speed to the point where he could come out and sing a couple of songs. I guess if you've had several months of bed rest, I guess you could, or vocal rest, I guess that then becomes a possibility. But whatever happened, whatever it took, whatever he was injected with, whatever he sounded
Cocaine is as good today as it ever was, judging from that performance.
No, I don't think it was that, but he was. No, he sounded fantastic, and I think it gave a lot of us hope that wow, maybe, gee whiz, maybe he can do this. And then you have to temper that with, wait a minute, coming out and singing 2 songs for one day compared to does not mean that he has enough gas in the tank to go out and do a concert and do a whole tour. I don't think there's any. I don't know who knows, but I would love to see that Aerosmith farewell tour come to fruition because we had tickets to go see that. I wanted to see that.
It was a great. Again, this day was full of surprises, and for anyone that watches the replay, don't miss the Steven Tyler portion. It was nice. It was really nice. Now, they did this weird drum battle, which we should probably talk about. And I think the drum battle was earlier in the day, wasn't it? Is that right?
I think it was before. Yeah, it was before.
I think it was
second supergroup.
It was before the second supergroup. I have it on the screen here. You had 3. I was going to say 3 generations, but not really, because Chad Smith and Danny Carey came up at the same time. But
yeah,
you had Chad Smith from the Chili Peppers, Travis Barker from Blink-182, and Danny Carey from Tool, doing a drum battle to the crazy metal riff of Symptom of the Universe, which is, I think a band should have covered the actual songs, but, what a riff, right? So it was Tom Morello, Nuno, and Rudy Sarzo playing the riff. I've never seen Rudy play Symptom of the Universe, you know what I mean? Rudy was, I don't know if you noticed, but Rudy was really holding it down. This is one of the songs I mentioned that could have went out of control and ended badly, like at a wedding or something. And Rudy was the one that brought it home. Tom Morello was contorting himself to get, you should probably set this up. You play the riff for Symptom of the Universe. It's supposed to go like 8 bars. And then each drummer got 2 sections to solo. And then they would go back to the riff for another 8 bars. And then the second drummer would get a solo. And then the third drummer would get a solo. Pretty simple format. Travis Barker was the first drummer to solo. And he was doing
his stuff,
spastic stuff. And then the camera cut to Chad Smith, who looked like, the fuck, what are you doing? And he was clearly annoyed that it wasn't his turn yet. And he rolled his eyes. And at that moment, I think this thing's going to collapse into hell. But they recovered. And whatever was supposed to be, they finished. But what did you think about this experiment?
Listen, anytime you get 3 drummers on stage and try to, this goes back to, you had Buddy Rich and I think Joe Morello, and you had all the, so this thing's been happening for decades, and you're watching just to see what's going to happen, and if you go in with any expectation of precision or anything like that, it's not going to happen. That's all I can really say. It was cute, it was amusing, it was a palate cleanser, it was a great way to spend 3 minutes watching them do that.
I laughed a lot at certain moments in this event, but when Chad Smith was rolling his eyes at Travis Barker, and then 10 minutes later, he's flubbing a whole lot of love, the bottom part. I'm like, dude, you shouldn't be making fun of Travis Barker. Get your shit to bed with John Bonham. But it was fine. It passed.
So to summarize part 2, I would say it was if you've ever done a pub crawl, where you start off at one bar, and you're in there long enough to get the feel and the vibe of that bar, and then someone says, hey, I know, let's go over to this one. And you go in, and it's a completely different vibe, and it takes you a while to get reacclimated to it.
I like the last pub.
Exactly. Yeah. I like the jukebox better, or whatever. So part 2, it was lighter, which I thought was great, and lighter in terms of, the intensity was lighter, because there was such a looseness to it. And I think it's at a show like this with all these kind of bands, it's very heavy to get caught up in how lugubrious the whole thing can be when you're playing music of this kind of intensity. And so now you had the second part to me was like the celebration of this. Let's celebrate the music of Sabbath. Let's celebrate the music of Ozzy and the legacy. And let's play these songs in a configuration that's never going to happen again. And certainly not an experience like this. I think it was a great middle palate cleanser for what's about to happen, because now it's going to kick into the next gear. And this is where things get really serious.
So I'll say there were, like the first part, some really good moments that will probably never happen again. To see KK and Adam Jones playing a pre-song, to see things like Rudy Sarzo playing on Symptom of the Universe, even though it was just a riff. Very special. I had mixed feelings about the looseness of it. I'll always feel that way about it. I liked when it kicked into second gear, and then when the supergroups came in, it didn't feel like third gear. It felt like you're in neutral. I didn't like it. Overall, I loved Believer. I liked some other stuff, but I couldn't process it. But everyone, I will say, it was impressive to pull all these people together and to get them to show up at rehearsals. That must have been hard for some. And it was good for the fans because, like you said, Dave, they were all celebrating Sabbath's music. And now the next part, you're right. Part 3 is where this thing kicked into third gear and then was brought home by Ozzy's final performance on stage and Sabbath, the original 4 members, on stage. And so looking forward to part 3.
And here's what I'll say is just a preview to part 3. Part 3 is going to kick off with Pantera, and Phil Anselmo made a comment that, in my opinion, really summarizes the entire thing. He came out there and he said, if it were not for Black Sabbath, we would all be different people. And that hit me because it's so true. And we're going to talk more about that in part 3.
See you then.